All right.
Take one. Only take.
We're in Arlington.
We're good.
You want to hang out?
Wow, that was uncalled for.
I hope that we watch that in class on Tuesday.
It's entirely uncalled for. Where are
It was
we
nice
did get the email of the
meeting with you.
Oh, that's knockoff. Like only like $150.
You gotta restart it. I forgot we were emailing it to them.
She's doing nothing.
Oh,
I'm gonna edit it.
are you sure? Because I was just making inappropriate things with the camera.
Totally forgot, yeah.
Are you sure you're not?
You could end up on your mock confession.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna put that on there. I'm gonna put that on the confessions page after we're done.
Oh no, what do you speak of?
Do you have a confession? Oh, I'm not tall enough, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
it's okay.
It's a mock trial confessions and you can send anonymous.
Flying down.
Hey, do you guys have all your exhibits out that you need for the round?
Hey, y'all think the light should be on in here?
Middle of my
They just like off.
I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm really enjoying the ambiance.
Please, yeah.
Whoa, light bulbs.
Yeah. Yeah. Either one. It doesn't matter. The judges might turn them on anyway.
We'll make this candlelit, actually.
What?
What? Oh, candle lit.
Yeah, candlelit.
I heard Kindle.
That way, if we have evidence in our hand, we can walk over to the candle and light it on fire.
The Kindle?
Yeah, the candle.
The Kindle.
The Kindle. The candle.
A Kindle?
Oh, Ken doll would not torch it. We could give a Ken doll a little torch. And then it would.
You know, sometimes I really wonder what runs through your head.
You know, sometimes I ask,
You ready?
they never find an answer.
What the heck?
You,
You did that to yourself, bro.
what color are your pants?
Black.
Big that.
I feel like there's like a hand.
Well, I was like, is he wearing blavy?
Believe
Well, I got this pink shirt on.
Yeah, that bow tie.
the bow tie is the best part.
No, you have to button it. It's a respect thing for the judge.
Oh?
When you're
I have to
sitting,
button it.
unbutton
Yeah,
it
they don't
when you
want
sit
No, no, I'm
down.
one of those old
Like that.
school lawyers that just does whatever the hell they want. You know, the ones that just out there just...
You're so scrawny.
I'm not that scrawny. Okay.
160 pound man.
135 pounds.
130.
We're 135 pounds.
Yeah, I run cross country. I can't.
Tiana,
weigh
you
that
are
much and
very
not die?
small.
I have a great
What?
neck.
That's like average. That's
You
like
are like
man with my average.
Well, how tall are you?
5'6" something.
Yeah, so like
Okay,
about normal.
that makes more sense.
He's not like a
Not
bodybuilder.
that scrawny. Jack is just bigger than me.
Yeah, you could have better suit.
I think your suit looks great.
Matches.
Claire, I think you need a better suit.
I would have
I'm not
you were like
half
100.
suit, so-
Well, I was saying, like, this isn't even a suit. This is just dress pants, a shirt, and this jacket I borrowed from one of our administrators.
Yeah, basically.
He said, yeah, this is in the back of my closet.
Yeah,
You know, I think.
Which
This guy got his
professor?
coat from some random school administrator.
What professor?
Oh, Keith.
Keith.
McCoy. Oh, Keith.
Such a great gift.
Keith said, well, I have this one in the back of my closet.
I can see
I
him
can
saying
hear
that.
it. Yeah, for sure.
All right, cool.
I mean,
Did
it's
he
his
start
fault.
off by saying, Tyler?
He calls her nephew.
Did you go to him? You were like, I need some clothing.
I seriously try to borrow like shirts from him all the time.
Oh, I am
Dressed
so ready.
I love
He
the
does.
bow tie.
When he wears his little like beret, just wow, man.
He always dressed.
Yeah.
He rolled up in like a dragon shirt one time, like a year ago. Rolled up in a dragon. I was like, gee, ball your ball. I know that shirt was more than $40.
I want to go
Play with
swimming.
me, boy.
I want to go swimming.
I can't get over
We can go swimming after this round, Katie.
Are you still gonna swim even though you?
Hey, yo, so make sure to call me Mr.
I'll
Wilson.
dangle my feet in the pool.
No.
Mr. Wilson.
We're gonna call you Big Papa.
Please say,
Also,
and my co-counsel,
only
Big Papa.
button your top button.
Well, you're
Tyler.
introducing yourself, so.
I gotta introduce my. Wait, am I doing the introduction?
No. So he's gonna say.
I'm gonna say this is not Big Papa.
No, you're not gonna say that. I will walk out.
Oh my gosh.
You know what? I'll
Just
be like, you know what? You
you
can
know,
take
just
the case. You can have it. I'm just gonna.
I'm about to say, we say Big Papa, that's an automatic.
I'll say
That's an automatic fail.
this is Big Papa Tyler.
No, so he'll say, we'd like to make appearances. My name is Matthew Barnard, and along with my co-counsel, and then I'll stand up and say my name.
Can
And
I say
then,
Matthew Barnard just to throw him off?
no, if you,
Just say your
If
name.
you you're not saying your own name, it makes you look
I just want to
worse.
give him like the wrong name.
And it makes you look worse.
Why? Matthew, your name is on the ballot.
Oh.
They know.
Yeah, this charge is good.
Oh no. Yeah, I think we signed that thing too.
Yeah. Only button the top one.
Sorry, we're not usually this loud.
They're just right.
Everybody else is so stressed.
against, like the team? Or like all on their own team? Like,
No, like a different team, like team.
oh, no.
My
we
seat
hate
is just
teams
saying,
like that.
Yeah, no, we don't like, we're
We don't
we're
take
all like
ourselves
stressed out.
seriously, honestly.
Like this case is stressful for everyone. That's
Yeah,
just
like honestly, I've looked at this opening like twice.
I'm
I'm kidding, I'm kidding.
What was that about memorizing?
But yeah.
Well, it was
Tyler?
twice, but it was 24
That's
hours
it.
at a time.
Hey, Justin told me not to.
We had a
Oh,
team last,
memorizing
we had a
is
run
so
last
often.
weekend
So-
in Illinois. We had a team, the last team we played against, or competed against, they just wanted, they weren't even like trying to prove their case of negligence. They were just trying to screw us up by,
That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good strategy.
That was a good strategy.
It was mean.
It was rude.
What? What did I do?
Throwing us under the bus.
I do? I mean, yeah. Basically, I'm here to sabotage you.
I thought so.
You all can be seated.
And I just want to point out before we start that the clock is an hour ahead.
Okay,
So-
thank you. Notice,
We don't want to have a
All loss issue. Panic, all loss. I would say.
We can wait a little bit.
Okay, he has judged one of you guys this morning. Yeah. So he's gonna go now. go.
Okay.
Oh, you guys have balance. You guys have balance.
Okay, so with that, are there any pre-trial matters to attend to?
Yes, Your Honor, but first may we make appearances?
Yes.
I'm Matthew Barnard, along with my co-counsel,
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Katie Easton.
and
Good afternoon, Your Honor. I'm Tyler Lawson.
we represent the plaintiff in today's case. This time we'd like to invoke Rule 615, the constructive sequestration law. Witnesses barring party representatives. Today our party representative is Alex Grace.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Are there any objections?
No objections, but we'd like to introduce ourselves as well. We represent the defense today. My name is Joseph Lopez, my co-counsel.
I'm Bosco.
And we're currently at 2 witnesses taking care of 6 classmates downstairs.
I completely forgot that. I apologize. We're actually just waiting for you back to do all this.
If you'd like a copy of these documents here, I don't know. Okay. Yeah, I thought, just be nice.
It's okay. You're fine. We'll get.
No worries.
Are we all here in counsel? Perfect. You were saying counsel?
Yes, I'd like to give you a courtesy copy of the exhibit list here, as well as the complaint, answer counterclaims, stipulations, Midland's rules of evidence, and Midland's case law.
Thank you.
And at this time, we have no further pretrial matters and are ready to begin today's case.
Spence, any pre-trial matters?
No, we're ready to go.
Okay. Just as far as decorum in this courtroom goes, I'm going to have to ask permission to, or you all are going to have to ask permission to approach the bench as well as the witnesses, both your own and opposing counsel. And with that, I think we're ready for opening statements.
Yes, Your Honor. May I proceed?
You may.
If it may please the court, Your Honor, opposing counsel, members of the jury, you can't teach an old monkey new tricks. Danny Kosak failed to train his chimpanzee Elias correctly. In fact, he couldn't train Elias. Alex Grace in the Midlands TV studio decided to have Elias on the show after seeing his viral success. Miss Grace made all the necessary precautions to have a chimpanzee in their studio. At a pre-rehearsal to make sure Elias was comfortable on set, Elias started showing signs of fear of her. At one point, he was screeching loudly, and he got up out of his seat and ran over to the defendant and the victim, Chris Villafano. He jumped on top of Chris, and he started clawing and biting at Chris's face, neck, and arms. After numerous attempts to help, Chris was pronounced dead after sustaining injuries from Elias. An innocent man who suffered a violent and painful death because of the negligence of the defendant. Members of the jury, the charges the plaintiff is charging following today is charges of negligence because the plaintiff did not have Elias properly trained. The elements of negligence in our jurisdiction are the evidence of a legal duty that the defendant owed the plaintiff, the breaking of that legal duty, breaching of that legal duty, the damage suffered by the plaintiff, and the direct relation between the breach of contract or breach of duty that caused damages to the plaintiff. We will prove to you today that Danny Kosak was negligent. We will show this through the preponderance of evidence, meaning more likely than not that Danny Kosak had a legal duty to the plaintiff, and that he violated that duty, which caused the plaintiff to suffer damages. To show you that Danny Kosak was negligent, we will call 3 witnesses. The first witness is Alex Grace herself, who is the executive producer of Midlands After Dark with Alex Grace. She will tell you what happened that day on June 29, 2017. The next witness we will call is Dr. Hawkins, who is an expert in animal psychology and primatology. He will tell you how Elias was not prepared to be on set that day. So lastly, we will call Jameson Clark, who is a talent booker for Midlands After Dark Studios. So Jameson Clark will be able to tell you that she took all the necessary precautions and gave out all the necessary paperwork and handouts to make sure that the cast or the crew of Midlands After Dark was ready to host Elias on their show. At the end, after this case is over, my co-counsel, Katie Easton, will talk to you, and hopefully you will see that after seeing all this evidence, that Danny Kosak owed a legal duty to the plaintiff, and that he did not follow that legal duty, which resulted in the death of an innocent person, because an old monkey cannot learn new tricks. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Mr. Ventura, please. You're up.
Yes, thanks.
May it please the court, opposing counsel, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Nobody knew Elias better than Danny Kosak herself. Today I bring to you a case of civil negligence between the plaintiffs, Midland Television Studios, and the defendant, my client, Danny Kosak. Danny Kosak has an innate love for those less fortunate than herself. It is Danny Kosak who opened up and ran Midland's Animal Sanctuary for animals that were abandoned, abused, or for some reason or other just needed a home. Danny Kosak paid the animals the attention they needed, gave them the nutritional and medical requirements they needed to survive. Because that's just who she is. Now, sadly, after the incident that happened in Midlands after dark, donations stopped coming into the animal sanctuary, and the sanctuary was forced to close. Danny Kosak's career as an animal trainer has ended. The countless hours spent in school, the countless hours nurturing the animals that needed her help the most are now gone. Elias was more than just a pet chimpanzee to Danny Kosak. Elias was a friend, and that's who Danny Kosak lost that day, was a friend. Danny Kosak spent hours nurturing, caring for, and working with Elias. Now, what happened on June 29th, 2017 was terrible for both parties. But the plaintiffs at Midland Television Studios are claiming negligence against my client, Danny Kosak, saying that Danny Kosak did not fully prepare Elias to be brought onto a set, thus resulting in the death of Christopher Philippon. Now, I expect the testimony of the witnesses and the fact that my co-counsel will show to you today to prove otherwise, based on the preponderance of the evidence. Now, the preponderance of the evidence, simply speaking, is saying that I believe the plaintiff's Midland Television Studios is more likely than not liable for what happened on June 29th of 2017. And how we're going to do this is we're going to show you three witnesses. First witness will be Danny Kosak herself. She's going to show you how Elias was trained, the normal characteristics of Elias, and how weird, how strange Elias acted that day, how out of character it was. Secondly, we're going to bring to you Dr. Miller McCoy, an expert in his field of primatology. Dr. Miller McCoy has done his own research along has looked through the work of Dr. Willoughby Hawkins. Dr. Miller McCoy is going to look into external stimuli, other factors that could have caused this outrage that Elias felt. And thirdly, we're going to go and see Remy Hollis. Remy Hollis is the band manager for the Hound Dogs. Remy Hollis was on set at the exact time this incident occurred, and she will give you a better view, a better idea of what happened on that day. Now, ladies and gentlemen, as I said previously, nobody knew Elias better than Danny Kosak. The chimpanzee, Elias, was under the care of Danny Kosak for several years without incident. So how else, other than the negligence of Midland Television Studios, could something like this have happened? And that is what I ask you to do today.
Thank you, counsel. Is Plaintiff ready to call that first witness?
Yes, Your Honor. The first witness we will call is Jameson Clark. How are you, Ms. Clark?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm good. Can you state your education for the court?
Of course. I have a bachelor's in communication and a minor in theater from the College of William and Mary.
What did you do with your bachelor's in William and Mary?
So I moved out to Hollywood to try and make a career in modeling. And while I waited for that to kind of pick up, I ended up working at a cafe called the Oceanside Social.
What did you do at Oceanside Social?
For a while, I just worked as a normal barista, starting low. But eventually I managed to convince the owner to let me take over hiring any entertainment we had come on the weekends.
Were you in charge of entertainment on the weekends?
Yes, I was.
Okay. Are you acquainted with Alex Grace?
I am.
How are you acquainted with Alex Grace?
So one weekend, I ended up scheduling one of Alex's favorite bands called The Sea Also Rises. I was called and asked to reserve a seat for her, and it's Alex Grace, so of course I found something. And the rest, as they say, is history, because the Monday afterwards, I got a job offer I couldn't refuse.
What job did Alex Grace offer you?
I was offered to be the talent booker for her show, Midlands After Dark, with Alex Grace.
What does your job as a talent booker entail?
Well, as the name implies, I find the talent, I book the talent, but also whoever we have on the show that evening, I make sure they have what they need. So, say if Mia needs a rubber chicken, I make sure they have the rubber chicken.
Now, when booking talent, is it a normal business practice to do that by email?
Well, it's normal practice to just contact anybody you're booking, but we as a TV studio usually contact that way initially, and then afterwards we call.
So, who did you book for June 29th, 2007?
So for that, the show that
Do you have a response?
That. No response. Oh, actually, can I confer with co-counsel real quick?
Yes, sir.
Now rephrase the question.
Go ahead and do that.
Okay. On June 29th, 2017, who was booked for Midlands after dark
meeting.
overruled?
So for that day, I booked Danny Kosak and her chimpanzee Elias, along with the Hound Dogs and Avery Anderson.
How did you come about booking Danny Kosak and Elias?
Well, as I stated earlier, I emailed. I emailed her to start off a conversation, and from there, asked her, what day she would prefer to be on the show, and from that, we had things set up.
So Alex knew about your correspondence with Mr. Kosak?
Yes, so I make sure that I CC Alex on any correspondence I have between me and either the managers of the talent or the talent themselves, just so she can keep on top of what's happening.
Were there any special, I guess, prerequisites? That's a bad word for it. Did you have to do any special things to get ready for have Elias on set?
Yes, so there were various things me and Alex did to make sure that the studio would be ready. We consulted a well-known source that everybody uses in, this business to make sure that things would be up to code. We contacted an animal expert. We made sure we would have a pre-show rehearsal to have Elias get used to the set. I also made sure that we would have a safety meeting, and also Danny Kosak sent a list of 15 guidelines on top of what we already had to basically take care of before she and Elias showed up for the show.
So, on top of those guidelines, actually, let me ask another question. So you had a safety meeting. Who was at the safety meeting?
Basically everybody was at the safety meeting.
Everyone, including just everyone who was a part of Midlands After Dark TV studio set crew at the time.
Yeah, everybody who could be there was there.
No further questions.
Cross-examination.
Is it true that you had a conversation over the phone with one of Danny Kosak's agents?
Who exactly are you speaking of?
Kennedy.
Well, someone contacted me who said they were, an assistant of Danny Kosak, but I wasn't entirely sure.
And is it also true that Kennedy gave you a list of guidelines for you to write down and use them on?
Well, whoever it was, again, I'm not entirely sure if they were actually in contact with Danny, but I was told, here are a few more things to take care of before the show happens, and I was unfortunately unable to get to a pen before they started talking, so I was only able to get the last three, but they all sounded very familiar, so I am almost positive they were already on the guidelines that was previously set by Danny.
So you didn't get every single one?
No, I only got the final 3.
Now, when you hold your informal meeting, is that also true that someone came in charge of lunch?
Well, it wasn't so much as in even charge lunch. The writers asked if we could, if food could be nearby, not on set, but nearby, so there was food for the pre-show rehearsal, and everybody agreed, so it was allowed.
And nobody objected to this despite the having read one of the guidelines that stated broadcast food at least an hour before set.
Yes, but we made sure that everybody understood to like move the food, not to eat it actually before or 1 hour before the rehearsal. It was more of an expectation, just like to snack an hour before, well not an hour before, but yeah.
And you weren't actually on set on the day of the rehearsal?
No, the morning before, the morning of, I woke up feeling horrible, so I just couldn't make it in that day.
So you couldn't actually be there to ensure nobody ate at least an hour before
No,
the
I
rehearsal?
No, I couldn't, but the night before I double checked with everybody. I made sure everything was set up, and
But you couldn't actually be there to ensure that nobody ate before, an hour before the rehearsal?
no, I could not.
Can you redirect?
No, Your Honor. May my witness sit down?
Yes, ma'am, you may sit down. So before we keep going, just gonna make sure that we're only making objections to the witnesses that we're gonna be crossing. That being said, can I get, this is incomplete, I need the crossing attorney's name one more time.
That's so.
How to spell?
Y-A-T-Z-E-L.
Okay. And then is that last name?
D-E-L-G-A-V-I-L-L.
Okay, thank you. And then the next crossing attorney is gonna be crossing Dr. Hawkins.
Balthazar, B-A-L. T-A-Z-A-L.
Okay, awesome, thank you. Dr. Hawkins.
Yes, I'd like to call Dr. Hawkins to stand. Dr. Hawkins, please state your name to the court.
My name is Dr. Willoughby Hawkins.
And Dr. Hawkins, what do you do?
Well, I'm the Andrew Lowy professor and chair of the Department of Anthropology at Middle State University.
And what is your education?
Well, I received my bachelor's in psychology and biological anthropology from the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga. Then I went on to receive my doctorate in the area of animal sciences with a focus in primatology from Ohio State University. And in the last 2 years of my doctorate program, I actually did field research with at the Cassandra Tyana chimpanzee animal sanctuary.
Now, Dr. Hawkins, are you being compensated today?
Yes, today I'm being paid $300 per hour for all of my work, which is the standard rate in my field, as well as a flat fee of $5,000 for appearing here today.
And have you ever testified in court before?
I have, yes. I've testified exactly 25 times, 14 for the plaintiff and 11 for the defense.
And did you have sufficient facts and data when reviewing today's case?
I did.
And did you use methods and practices commonly found in your field?
Yeah, so I reviewed the affidavits of Jameson Clark, A.J. McCollum, as well as the depositions of Danny Kosak and Alex Grace. And this is common practice in the field, and I use these practices to reach my conclusions.
Now, Dr. Hawkins, why are you here today?
Well, I was retained by the plaintiff in the television studios to analyze 2 big topics. First is the reliability of the choices of Elias the chimpanzee as a performance by Danny Kosak, as well as the proper training methods that Danny Kosak used to train Elias for preparation of the show.
Now, Dr. Hawkins, I'd like to talk about performance chimpanzees. What makes a good performance chimpanzee?
Well, pan-troglodytes, commonly known as the common chimpanzee, have been used in many entertainment industry businesses, and we've actually had the perception because of this that they are docile creatures. However, this is not the case. And in order to see if the chimpanzee is going to be suitable, I look at 4 main factors. The first being age, the second being gender, the third being their previous environment, and then lastly, any instances of prior regression.
So let's take a look at those you just listed. The first being age. How is age relevant?
Well, most chimpanzees that we see performing in the entertainment industry are infants. And this is simply just because they don't have the physical attributes that are going to be harmful to humans. There have been 10 documented cases of chimpanzee attacks in the entertainment industry in the past 10 years, and only one of those has been from a chimpanzee that was under 5 years old.
Now, in the case you reviewed today, what was the age of the chimpanzee?
Elias was 10 years old.
And is that problematic?
Yes, it is. As I mentioned earlier, we pick it, the entertainment industry often sees infants due to the lack of physical attributes that can cause bodily harm. And Elias being 10 years old, he had entered puberty, which is normally around the age of 6 to 7 in male chimpanzees. And so he developed these physical attributes such as long canines, fingernails, and the muscle mass, which is greater than humans. So he was more likely to do more damage and engage in aggressive behavior.
Now, gender. You mentioned gender. Why is gender playing selecting a performance chimpanzee?
Oh, right. Gender is an important factor because most of the time we see female chimpanzees being involved in the entertainment industry. This is simply due to their muscle mass being lower than the male chimpanzee, and so they are less capable of doing damage. Out of those 10 attacks that I mentioned earlier, only one of those was from a female chimpanzee.
And today, what gender was Elias?
Elias was a male chimpanzee.
Is there cause for concern here?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, we pick female chimpanzees due to their less intimidating physical attributes and less aggressive behavior. So Elias being a male chimpanzee statistically increased the odds that that would occur.
Now, you mentioned environments. How does environment play into this?
Well, it actually seems pretty counterintuitive, but the longer the animal, especially a chimpanzee, interacts with humans, the more likely they are to engage in aggressive behaviors against them. And this is simply due because once a chimpanzee has familiarized themselves with humans, they are more likely to recognize that they have superior strength to us, and less likely to flee in case they are threatened and engage in aggressive behavior because they know that they can win the fight.
Now, in today's case, which you analyzed, were there any prior signs of this?
Well, while I was doing my research and I was reading the deposition of Danny Kosak, there was one instance that really stuck out to me. And while an attack never occurred with Elias, he was showing the signs of what we call the startle reaction.
The startle reaction. What is the startle reaction?
Right. Well, the startle reaction has been observed in chimpanzees for many years now. And it's basically when the chimpanzee experiences an external stimuli which threatens them, and they become agitated. They start jumping up and down, screeching, banging on their chest. And when they're in this state, they are more likely to engage in aggressive behavior. And so it's very important for them to be calmed down.
Does Elias ever engage in the startle reaction?
Right. As I was mentioning earlier, Elias was on a TV show a couple of years prior to this incident. And the skit was that Elias would throw food at the host of the TV show, and then the TV host would yell at Elias. And after this happened, Elias seemed to get startled and exhibit these signs of the startle reaction, and started screaming at the audience for 15 minutes until Danny Kosak could finally calm Elias down.
Now today, you were retained to analyze the training of Elias. What was your analysis of Elias' training?
Well, through the information that I reviewed for today's case, I was able to conclude that Danny Kosak used positive reinforcement when training Elias normally, and then she would normally switch to a fixed ratio training schedule, which is the best method. However, in this case, Danny Kosak didn't switch to that fixed ratio reinforcement schedule. And this is problematic due to the fact that when the trainer doesn't switch to this fixed ratio reinforcement schedule, the chimpanzee is more likely to expect a reward every single time. And if this doesn't occur, they are more likely to exhibit signs of the startle reaction.
Now, today, can you draw a conclusion from the analysis you performed on this situation?
Of course. It's my professional opinion, to the highest degree of scientific certainty, that the choice of Elias the chimpanzee was ill-advised due to the effects of age, gender, the previous environment, and any signs of instant aggression that was shown by Elias. All of these factors statistically increase the chance that an attack would have occurred by Elias. And furthermore, the training method was not sufficient in reducing the effects of the startle reaction.
So you're not this time like to do the cross? Yeah. Professor Hawkins, is it?
Yes.
Have you ever trained an animal before?
I have no personal experience training animals, but I have done my research on how they behave in the environment.
Is that going to be a no?
I've never personally trained an animal, no.
Did you ever meet Elias?
I never personally met Elias due to the fact that he was put down right after this attack happened.
Can you say that chimps over the age of 10, they are not trainable?
I believe that the training process can continue through the aging process. However, my issue with the age of
Let me rephrase. Do you believe that chimps over the age of 10 cannot be trained?
I do not believe that, no.
With that being said, would you say that Elias at that age was untrainable?
No, I would not.
Sound like a bad word.
Can you read that? No, Your Honor. At this time, we request our witnesses sit down.
The witness will be allowed to sit down. Thank you, Doctor. Next witness.
Yes, Your Honor. The plaintiff would like to call Miss Alex Grace to the stand. May I proceed?
Yes, thanks for asking.
Good afternoon, Miss Grace. Could you please introduce yourself to the court?
My name is Alex Grace.
And where do you live, Miss Grace?
I currently live in Midland Hills, but I do own a home in Beverly Hills.
And what is your education?
I graduated from Corinthian High School, and I did get accepted to Brown University, but I didn't go because I wanted to get a jump start on my acting career.
What is your employment history?
In 1990, I went on a national tour of Cases Crimes, and I began in Broadway. And then in 1997, I switched to acting in television. But after a short break, because I was taking care of my husband, Jack, I joined MTS in 2013.
Now, what is your current occupation?
I'm the executive producer and TV show host of Midland After Dark with Alex Grace.
And you mentioned that you were an executive producer. What are your duties as an executive producer and TV show host?
Right now, I looked over my team, made sure everything was running smoothly, but my team is amazing though, so I really had to step in and do that.
You mentioned your team, Miss Grace. How is your team set up?
It's set up on how our show was supposed to go that day. So we have our writers, including Crystal O'Connor, who wrote the skit for that show, and we had Jameson, who was our talent booker, and she would communicate and book all of our talents.
What kinds of talent do you usually have on the show?
Typically, we would have celebrity guests that we would interview, and then we would close the act with a musical act, but our last show was the first time we decided to have a live animal.
Miss Grace, you mentioned you had a live animal on your show. How did this come about?
One day I came across one of my employees watching a video of a chimp named Elias that went viral, and I knew that it was a way to increase ratings for my show. I wanted Elias on there, and so I noticed that Elias's owner had contacted me back in 2016.
Who is Elias's owner?
Danny Kosak.
Now, I want to direct your attention to the show that took place on June 29, 2017. How did you prepare to have a live animal on set?
First, Kosak sent my team guidelines that we should follow. There's 15 of them. But to ensure extra safety for my team, I personally contacted 5 outside experts, as well as referenced a well-used article within the entertainment industry.
You mentioned guidelines sent to you by the defendant. Were those guidelines followed?
Yes.
And you also mentioned an article that you looked at. Would it be helpful for you to have that article in front of you today?
Yes.
Approaching opposing counsel. Permission to approach the witness with the stand, Your Honor.
Permission granted.
Ms. Grace, what is Exhibit 14?
This is an article written by the American Journal of Film and Theater, and it's the best practices for dealing with live animals in the entertainment industry.
And is that a fair and accurate copy?
Yes.
Has it been altered or changed in any way?
No.
The plaintiff would now like to motion to have Exhibit 14 entered into evidence.
Any objections?
So, what did you use that article for?
We use this to ensure safety for the team and how to deal with having a live animal on our set. This is something I referenced because it's a compilation of the best practices used with all executive producers in the entertainment industry. We also followed one of the most basic guidelines, which was to hang up a sign, and I saw those in a video.
Permission to approach and tender evidence to the bench.
Permission granted.
And Mrs. Grace, would it be helpful for you to have that poster in front of you today?
Yes.
Approaching opposing counsel, please, Exhibit 16. Permission to approach the witness with the same.
Permission granted.
Mrs. Grace, what is Exhibit 16?
This is the warning live animal on set sign that was being used in the video.
And is that a fair and accurate copy?
Yes.
Has it been altered or changed in any way?
No.
The plaintiff would now like to offer Exhibit 16 in evidence, Your Honor.
Are there any objections? No. Exhibit 16 will be entered.
Mrs. Grace, where did you see these signs posted?
They were hanging on all the studio doors.
Permission to approach and tender evidence to the bench. Ms. Grace, I want to direct your attention to your pre-show rehearsal. Do you normally conduct a pre-show rehearsal?
No, typically we don't because our shows run smoothly and I like there to be a surprise, but that day, we decided to have one because it was our first time having a live animal.
Now, in talking about the events that occurred that day, would it be helpful for you to have a blueprint of your set in front of you?
Yes.
Approaching opposing counsel with Exhibit 1. Permission to approach the witness with the same.
Permission granted.
Mrs. Grace, what is Exhibit 1?
This is a blueprint of my studio.
And is that a fair and accurate copy?
Yes.
Has it been altered or changed in any way?
No.
The plaintiff would like to offer Exhibit 1 in evidence.
Any objections?
Permission to approach and tender evidence to the bench and publish to the jury?
Yes.
Your Honor, may my witness have permission to step down for use of the demonstrative aid?
She may.
May I put up here with you the use of the demonstrative aid?
Yes, you may.
Mrs. Grace, let's talk about your pre-show rehearsal. How did that begin?
So first I started off giving my monologue for the show to open it up, so I did a couple of jokes, just got everyone laughing, and then we moved into Danny and Elias's segment.
Where were Danny and Elias and yourself, if you could point out to the jury where you were located on the map when the pre-show rehearsal began?
So whenever Danny and Elias came into the show, I shook Danny's hand, and then she prompted me to shake Elias's hand. After that, I sat in my desk that's located in the back corner of the stage, and Elias sat in the chair to my direct right, and Kosak was sitting next to Elias.
What happened next?
So Kosak got up and moved off of the stage, which is represented by this circle right here. And I started to ask my questions to Elias as if I was interviewing him.
And how did Elias react to this?
Kosak was doing some hand signals whenever I was asking him the questions, and then Elias seemed to become agitated because of it.
And what was Elias doing?
First off, Elias jumped up on his chair and he started screaming, and it was really, really loud. And I got scared, so I froze and I didn't know what to do. And then all of a sudden, he jumped off his chair and ran across the stage towards Crystal O'Connor.
And just to clarify to the jury, where was Danny Kosak standing in relationship to Chris Villafana and Elias?
Right here behind Chris.
And what happened after Elias ran off stage? After Elias ran towards Chris Villafana?
Elias started to attack Chris and was scratching at his body and just ripping him apart. And I was really scared, so I got under my desk and I waited until it was over when I knew it was safe, and I could just hear all the screams of Elias and Chris.
To your knowledge, was there an effort made by the defendant to stop this attack?
No.
Objecting speculation.
I'm gonna overrule it.
I'm going to repeat the question for you, Mrs. Grace. Was there an effort, to your knowledge, by the defendant to stop this attack?
No.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Representative.
Mrs. Osgraves. I'm going to ask you a few questions, and they're really simple, quick questions that can be easily answered yes or no. Is it true that your first job with MTS was a show called Cooking with Osgraves?
Yes.
And the show didn't last very long. It ended because it had pretty low ratings.
Yeah, I guess cooking just wasn't something that was going to work out for this particular company.
Sure. Now, after that, MTS gave you another chance to host your own show called Midlands After Dark, correct?
Yes.
All right. And this show has been running concurrent for about 3 years, correct?
Yes.
Now, in 2016, the same year that my client, Danny Kosak, contacted you, this is when the ratings of the show started to drop, correct?
Yes, but it's expected over time in television. Ratings
But they
get
started
lower.
to drop, correct?
They did, yes.
They did. And in 2017, those were the lowest ratings that you had of the show's entirety. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. Is it true that my client contacted you in 2016?
Yes.
And she contacted you by email, correct?
Yes.
And in 2017, when the show was at its lowest ratings, is that when you contacted my client?
Yes.
So I think it'd be easy to assume that you wanted to boost your ratings, as any show host would want to do, wanted to contact my client to get Elias so that your ratings would be boosted. Is that true?
Yes.
All right. So as you reach out to my client, of course, bringing an animal on the set was new to you, correct?
Yes. It was something, a challenge I wanted to try.
And so there were, as you were shown earlier, you had your own set of rules and guidelines that you looked over yourself, correct?
Yes.
And is it true that my client, Danny Kosak, sent you some guidelines as well?
Yes.
Right? I'd like to petition to approach the opposing counsel with Exhibit 23. See the evidence. Would you like on copy? I petition to approach witness.
Yes.
would you like a copy for yourself?
Yes.
Mr. Chris, you reviewed these guidelines, correct?
Yes.
They were sent to you, and
Objection, Your Honor. He has not entered this into evidence or laid any foundation for asking questions about this.
I'm going to overrule the objection, but I'm going to have to ask you to later still come up.
petition to relieve the enter these into evidence as well.
Objection to hearsay, Your Honor.
Response?
These are not hearsay as these safety guidelines. These are not hearsay because the safety guidelines were sent to you directly, or were sent as shown prior intent, prior existence state of mind that Kosak or that Alex Grace was intending on using Danny Kosak's chimpanzee alias Onset. These safety guidelines were sent as sort of a verbal contract that in agreeing to bring alias Onset, these safety guidelines would be followed. Response to that?
This is an out-of-court statement provided to the plaintiff by the defense, and it was in no way a binding contract.
Counsel, these are not the same safety guidelines that you introduced to evidence, are they?
Correct.
Okay. Do you have a response to counsel's argument that this is an out-of-court statement offered simply for the truth of the matter, sir?
It is not offered simply for the matter of the truth. It is just existing is extra information that Midland Television Studios could have further prepare themselves for the arrival of Elias on the set. It is not saying that document itself is not saying that they're negligent.
I'm going to go ahead and sustain the objection.
Mr. Altrez, Mrs. Altrez, sorry. You approached my client, Danny Kosak, at a time when you're ready for work, correct?
Yes.
And in this time, you're trying to get them higher, correct?
Yes.
As stated, before any animal arrival, I'm sure you had a team meeting, right?
I personally did not hold one, no.
No. And so if you did not have a team meeting, you were sure that people read the article that you sent out. Was your team, let me repeat this. Do you feel that your team was properly ready for the arrival of the chimpanzee on set?
Yes, I sent out the guidelines to my team for them to read, and usually when I send something out, they always read it.
You said usually when you send something out, they always read it. Does that mean you did not confirm that they read the article?
I did not know.
And who sent the article out?
I sent it to the lister, and which included all the employees, all the interns.
All right. And so just to reconfirm, you did not make sure that the article was read by everyone?
No.
All right.
Any redirect?
No redirect, Your Honor. I just asked that my witness may be allowed to step down.
She will. Thank you for your time, Ms. Grace.
At this time, Your Honor, we have no further witnesses, and we request a 5-minute recess.
Any objections to a 5 to 10 minute recess? Then we'll do that.
court's purpose?
My name is Danny Kosak.
Can you please let me know about your educational background?
Yes, I obtained my Bachelor of Science in Animal Science from the University of Florida in 1995.
What about your work history? Can you let me know that?
I'm currently an animal handler at the Red Hawk Animal Sanctuary in Oxford, Ohio, but I was previously an animal trainer and handler at the animal sanctuary that I actually founded in Midland Animal Sanctuary.
What are your duties as a trainer and handler?
I'm in charge of the well-being and overshadowing of all the animals that I take care of in my sanctuary, as well as making sure that they're properly nourished and that they have a good environment.
What are the specific animals that you train?
Oh, I train a number of animals, some ranging from ostriches, lions, tigers, chimpanzees, pretty much anything that you can think of other than bears. I for sure don't have them.
What is your specific training on chimp?
For chimpanzees specifically, as I did with my chimpanzee Elias, I had him on a continuous positive reinforcement training method, where I would reward Elias whenever he would perform a trick correctly. And then I would gradually move on to a fixed ratio type of training method to where after Elias performed the trick correctly, say he performed it 3 times correctly, then I would reward him after that. And then 3 times again, then I would reward him just to make sure that he was really familiar with the trick and that he was able to do it to the best of his ability.
How would Elias respond to these training methods?
Elias always responded really well to the training methods. He was really familiar with me and what I was asking of him, and it was never much of a problem to get him to be comfortable with the tricks that I was setting before him at the time.
Did Elias ever perform?
Yes, Elias.
Objection reading.
I'm just gonna overrule it for 10 minutes.
Okay.
Did Elias ever perform?
Yes, Elias performed a number of times. He performed in about 18 television shows, 2 movies. He was very comfortable with the part.
How did Elias begin perform himself in those shows?
Elias always performed well and responded accordingly to all my training methods, as long as everybody on the staff who was present at the show was also following the guidelines that I do set out every time that Elias is present on any of the shows.
So Elias, in that sense, corresponded to your training and everything?
Yes, Elias was very obedient and he was very good at catching on to whatever it was that we needed him to do. And he did well in a good amount, almost all of the shows, except for there was one occurrence when he did have a bit of a struggle reaction with Byron Fellows when he was on support.
How did that occur?
Well, Mr. Fellows was really interested in Elias doing something different with his act. He wanted to be a little more interactive with him, and he would start to scream at Elias, and Elias, still being a wild animal, was not very familiar with what was going on. I never screamed at him, and I never taught him things of such. And so he began to scream back, and he wasn't really aware of how he was supposed to react in the situation, and I was able to calm him down after about 15 minutes of the incident.
Do you recognize Elias' scream?
Yes, Elias, to me, I am very familiar with Elias, and a scream to him could be anything to anybody else who's not very familiar with him. But for instance, Elias could be laughing and somebody may think he was agitated, or he could be screaming, or he could be upset, or anything. There's a number of things that could Elias could be reacting to that one who's not very familiar with him may not know as much about.
Do you recall your last performance?
Yes, unfortunately, my last time seeing Elias was when we were present on Villains After Dark with Alex Gray.
How did you get in contact with him after that?
Well, in 2016, I did reach out to Ms. Grace and I sent emails just asking if Elias and I could make a guest appearance on the show.
What happened next?
She wasn't really responsive up until about a year later when she finally did respond and allow Elias and I to be on the show.
What steps did you take to before bringing Elias into the show?
Well, I made sure that I sent out the safety guidelines that everybody who was going to be in contact with Elias or present on the set needed to be aware of to make sure that they were safe as well as Elias at the time of the show.
Okay. This time I'd like to present Exhibit 23 to opposing counsel. Approach the witness.
May.
Would you guys like a copy?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Kosak, do you recognize the document?
I do. These are my safety guidelines.
Is it the original document?
Yes, it appears to be the same as the other two.
Okay. Has it been altered in any way?
No, not to my knowledge.
Okay. At this time, I'd like to move Exhibit 23 into evidence.
Any objections?
I will object to hearsay, Your Honor.
Did you object last time?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, is that a mistake on your part, or are we just sharing objections?
Oh, no, they tried to enter it as I was directing, or while they were crossing Alex Grace, and Alex Grace
I'm
was my
sorry.
witness. So.
My mistake.
Okay, no, that's
Okay.
no problem.
Response on hearsay grounds.
Yes, this is Kosak's exhibition paper. This is his guidelines that he sends out. So it belongs to my defendant here. And it's not for the admission, but it's for the hearing of the audience.
It's for the hearing of the audience. Could you explain that?
Can I consult with my...
Yes, go ahead.
Sorry about that. The effect on the listener.
Okay. Response to that.
This is still an out-of-court statement that it's being used for the truth of the matter asserted.
Counsel, how exactly did these statements have an effect? I guess what I'm asking is, who is the listener, and what effect does it have on them?
The effect will have on it that there was a guideline that was needed to be met, and because of these guidelines, things didn't go, because the guidelines weren't followed, there was an incident that happened. And since my client did say that this is a routine thing that she does before going into a live event, this is for the record of the matter that it's done every single time.
Response to that.
I'm still not understanding who the listener is in this situation and why that this would be effect on the listener, because it is still an out-of-court statement.
I'm going to go ahead and sustain you there. Sustain you there.
Proceed.
Yes, I'm sorry.
I'm Ms. Kosak. What are some regulations that you would have instilled in people in your life?
A few rules that I like to go by whenever I have a live present on the show, just simple things just to get him comfortable with his surroundings, like giving him time to acclimate to the set that he's going to be on, making sure that there is no food or smells of food surrounding him or the set at least an hour prior to his appearance, and no egging him on, certain things like that.
How does food play a role in this?
Well, like I did say before, I do reward Elias based off of my training methods, and I will give him treats as his reward whenever he does something correctly. And so it could kind of confuse Elias at times because he's not understanding why he's smelling or seeing all of these different food and different items out, because to him those are rewards. And so he may get a bit confused in the situation as to what exactly he's rewarded for, or if he doesn't have to do anything to get the reward now, if there's just food sitting.
On the day of the live show, was there a rehearsal prior to that?
Yes, there was a rehearsal.
Well, with that being said, Ms. Kosak, what was Elias's manner of character shown when he was performing live?
Elias did seem fine prior to us going on to the rehearsal set. It was a bit of a tight punch just because we didn't really get too much time to get familiar with the area. We were placed immediately into a dressing room and then moved to a waiting room where we were in for a while, and then taken immediately to the set after being in the waiting room for quite some time. So it was, Elias, he was pretty calm at the time, but he wasn't necessarily familiarized with what he was about to be in.
When did they get up the room?
We were led to a small green waiting room by an intern prior to this coming onto the show for rehearsal. We were in it for quite a while. I was really hoping that I had known ahead of time because then I may have brought some things to entertain Elias, such as toys or things to just keep him busy because we weren't aware that we were going to be kind of put off to the side for that amount of time, especially not being able to be familiar with the set that Elias was about to be performing on.
On the day of the live show, where were you standing?
I initially did walk Elias onto the set, and I stayed there until Elias was comfortable, and I felt that he was going to be okay and acclimated with where he was going to be placed on the set. And then eventually I did move off a little further so that it would appear as though Elias was performing these tricks on his own, while I would just move off to the side where he could still see me and be able to respond to the training methods that I was giving to him, such as wanting him to nod his head or smile at certain times.
How long did you train Elias?
I trained Elias for at least 150 hours.
For the hand signals, how long did you train Elias for that?
I only needed about 8 hours to train Elias with the hand signals that we used while he performed on Midlands After Dark with Alex Grace because he seemed to pick up on them really quickly, so we didn't have to take as much time to learn those different processes.
On the live show while Elias was performing, when did you notice Elias started getting a little rough?
Everything was fine for a while. He was very respondent to my hand gestures and everything up until Alex Grace seemed to be getting a bit close to Elias and began to reach out as to maybe like ruffle Elias' hair or something that she had done on a previous show before. And that's when I saw Elias start to get a bit unsettled.
What did you do then?
Then I saw that Elias began to jump out of his chair and he was making a bunch of noise at that time. So I started to move a little further closely or slowly to start approaching Elias so I could handle the situation. But then before I could take a couple of steps, I saw Alex Grace reach out to touch Elias and that's when it all went left.
What happened next?
Elias became frantic. He started jumping, screaming, and he jumped off the set and then started running towards what I thought was me, but he unfortunately ran straight into Crystal Lafana.
What was behind Crystal Lafana?
I later realized that behind where Crystal Lafana and the other writers were standing, there was actually still food and chicken wings back set that they had prior to the rehearsal. Once I asked them to move it away because it was only moved about 15 minutes before we were present on the set, even though I asked that they be moved at least no less than an hour before. The food was still backstage, and I believe that the smell of it still triggered Elias' instance that he was going in that direction.
Once Elias attacked Chris, what happened?
I was yelling and making sure that everybody could just calm down and stay calm so that I could handle the situation to the best of my abilities. But by then, Chris was already being attacked by Elias, and there was not much that I could do. Next thing I knew, Elias took off running into one of the back rooms, and I went off after him to make sure that I could secure him in that room.
After you secured him in the room, what happened after?
Later, the emergency services did come, and everybody was coming to check and make sure that this situation was settled and to check on Crystal Lafana. And unfortunately, that was one of the worst experiences of my life because after that, that's when they put down Elias.
Thank you, Ms. Kosak. At this time, I'd like to pass the word.
Cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Ms. Kosak. I'd like to start off by talking about your training. You have only trained one other primate besides Elias, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And that was a gibbon?
Yes.
Could you please explain to the court what the difference between a gibbon and a chimpanzee is?
Objection. I'd like to see my witness, please.
Counsel, if you could just.
Sorry.
You're fine. Proceed.
Could you please explain to the court what the difference between a chimpanzee and a gibbon is?
Well, a chimpanzee is going to be one who's going to obtain more of a stronger build, longer arm, longer stance, be able to manipulate itself a little bit more freely around the environment.
And you would agree with me that chimpanzees are significantly stronger than gibbons, correct?
Yes, I will agree.
Now I want to talk about Elias. Elias was at least 6 years old when he moved to your sanctuary, is that right?
Yes, that's right.
And to your knowledge, he had no other training prior to that?
That's correct. I did adopt Elias from a sanctuary in Uganda, and to my knowledge, I was.
And you are familiar with the startle reaction in chimpanzees, is that right?
Yes.
And you're aware that Elias may have exhibited one of these startle reactions back in 2016?
Yes, Elias did attribute a startle reaction previously when I did speak about him being present on Byron Fellow's Safari Trip show. That when the guidelines were not followed, that is the first time that I did realize Elias was experiencing a startle reaction.
So that's a yes to my question.
Yes, Elias did attribute a startle reaction.
And you chose not to investigate this incident, is that right?
Well, the reason that the startle reaction happened was because the guidelines weren't followed that I did have laid out, and so all of the other.
Ms. Kosak, is that a yes to my question, or is that a no to my question? You did not choose to investigate this incident.
I did not personally investigate because the guidelines were not followed, so that's the reason for Elias having this startle reaction.
Now, I want to talk about, previous encounters that you had with Elias and other people. You had him on Lord Byron Fellow's show back in 2015, correct?
Yes, I did.
And at that point, he had just began entering puberty, or getting out of puberty at that time?
Yes.
And so, 2 years after, in 2017, when you stated that chimps become more aggressive after puberty, you still had him on another TV show in 2017.
Objection, relevant.
Could you ask the question one more time?
You brought Elias onto a TV show in 2017, Midlands Television, 2 years after he got out of puberty, is that correct?
Okay. What exactly is your response to his relevance?
This is relevant because, as we've heard from previous witnesses, age is an important factor in performance chimpanzees and selecting performance chimpanzees.
Okay, response, counsel?
She's asking about a previous performance that had nothing to do with this case.
I'm going to go ahead and overrule the objection. Relevance fairly low bar, but just be sure to limit your questions to only things that pertain to this case.
So Elias had been out of puberty for about 2 years when he started, or when you brought him onto Midlands, correct?
Yes.
And chimpanzees are stronger than the average human after puberty, is that correct?
Generally, chimpanzees are stronger than they would have been before they hit puberty. I would say that Elias was stronger than he was prior to being on the show, but by that time, yes, Elias had attributed some stronger attributes and different.
So that's the yes to my question. Elias was at the time stronger than your average person.
I am confident that Elias was stronger prior to, but I cannot compare how strong Elias was to anyone other than himself or another chimpanzee.
Now, let's talk about when you arrived on set. You saw that there was a buffet, correct?
Yes, I did, in which I requested that it be removed immediately.
But you didn't take any further action when it wasn't removed, is that correct?
Well, by the time we had got back to the set, everything had been removed, and so I was just going to go ahead and go by along with the show as I had seen that they had finally heeded to my request.
So even though there was still food on the set, or food in the studio when this rehearsal began, you proceeded as normal when your guidelines specifically state not to have food on set?
Well, I did not have Elias surrounded by the food. I did have Elias in his own area, but
Ms. Kosak, to direct you back to my question, you did nothing to deal with the food on set, even though you saw it there before the rehearsal started.
I did all I could have done in my position to get the food removed from the set. Once it was removed, then that's all I could have asked for.
So, when Elias started to freak out, you did nothing, correct?
No, I started to come towards Elias so I could calm him down, and that was before Alex Grace reached out, and then Elias jumped up.
But you will admit that you froze for a solid 5 to 10 seconds before doing something, correct?
I did not want to startle Elias more, and I wanted to make sure that anything other than what I wanted to happen in the situation was controlled before I began to proceed to control Elias' manners.
But as a professional trainer, you still froze as your chimpanzee was going towards you and another person. You froze.
I didn't freeze as Elias was coming towards us. I froze once Elias originally jumped out of his seat before he actually began to attack.
question, you froze when Elias started exhibiting the startle reaction, correct?
The startle reaction actually happened once Alex Grace reached out and Elias jumped out of his seat running towards Hannah and myself. I don't believe the startle reaction happened at the very original point where I did freeze when Elias Grace went out of his seat. Like
Ms.
I
Kosak,
said,
to direct you back to my question, you still did nothing when your chimpanzee was mauling Chris Villafana.
I did the best that I could. I wanted to make sure that everybody else was secure at the time as well, but by that
Ms.
time,
Kosak, yes or no, you did nothing to stop your chimpanzee from mauling one of the employees of MTS?
no, I was not able to stop Elias from attacking Chris Villafana.
No further questions.
This on your honor, witness has seat.
Yes, you may. Thank you for your time.
This time, the defense would like to call Dr. McCoy to the stand. Please say your name for the court.
Dr. McCoy.
All right, Dr. McCoy, why are you here today?
I was retained to review the report of Dr. Hawkins, as well as the environmental assessment of the suit.
All right, and are you currently employed?
Yes, I am. I'm currently employed at the Columbia State University.
And what is it that you do there?
I teach ethology for a permanent group student.
Do you have any do you have any prior education in ecology?
Yes, I hold a bachelor's degree in biomedicine, engineering, and I also have a dual master's in ethology and zoology, as well as a PhD in dermatology.
And do you have any field research?
Yes, I have.
Or field research experience? Sorry.
Yes, I spent 11 years researching and analyzing animal behavior, especially in primates.
And with these long years of school and field research, do you have any peer-reviewed articles that you've written?
I have published 22.
And how many of these are related to animal behaviors?
Most of them. 3 are especially implicated in this case. We can say that they are directly, we can refer to those to analyze these cases.
Have you ever been retained for your expertise before?
Yes, I have been retained 6 times, in which none of them went to court because they were settled due to my expert opinion.
Dr. McCoy, did you receive any materials to prepare for this case?
Yes, I did. I received the affidavit of Jameson and McCoy, and also the deposition of Alex Grace and Mr.
Did the materials have sufficient facts and data?
Yes.
Did you use reliable principles and methods?
Yes, we know the exhibits and the previous research of Dr. Hawkins.
And did you reliably apply these principles and methods to the facts of the case?
Yes, I did.
In your expert opinion, what did you find in the suitability of Elias as a performance chimpanzee?
Well, he was very suitable because he was previously trained, and Dr. Kosak did have a good understanding of training.
Did you read Dr. Hawkins' report?
Yes.
What did you get from reading his report?
Well, it was a good extended report, but he generalized chimpanzees instead of looking at them individually by their individual characteristics, because they are like people. They have a special character and special physical features.
Let's go back to the second reason why you're retained today. Could you further explain the stimuli?
Yes, we're referring to the environmental stimuli in which the chimpanzee could have been reacted instead.
Were there any stimuli in particular that you think could have set Elias off?
Yes. I reviewed the affidavit and the deposition as well as the other evidence that were provided to me and the report of Dr. Hawkins. I reviewed that there was this food at the place and which could have triggered emotional responses from Elias, as well as the presence of other animals will have been other.
After reading depositions, Danny Kosak and Alex Grace, was there any one instance that you think could have most set Elias off?
Yes, Alex Grace tried to read Elias, in which could have triggered Elias to act.
Go ahead.
Cross-examination.
And begin your honor.
You may.
Dr. McCoy, you're being compensated $650 an hour today, aren't you?
Objection relevance.
Response.
This just goes to show how much you're being paid to be here today.
I'm not allowed.
That's correct.
And this is significantly more than standard practice, correct?
Well, my clients are getting what they pay me, so for my opinion. But yes.
Well, and you also have no hands-on experience training primates, do you?
Not personally experienced, but I did spend 11 years studying these animals.
And Danny Kosak did reach out to you, correct? When analyzing today's case?
Well, I actually reached for them to allow me to take the case.
And this was so that you could get more clients, correct?
Yes, so any expert will do.
All right, Dr. McCoy. Let's talk about the 15 items, shall we? Being reviewed. So out of these 15 items, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 13 have no specific evidence, do they?
That's correct.
And 14 and 15, you found that you had no opinion on, correct? And 9 had no relevance to safety. And 3, 8, 11, and 12, you ruled were not relevant in today's case.
Correct. That's true.
And when reviewing today's case, you admitted that you found that you could not conclude what stimulus caused Elias's reaction, could you?
Well, Dr. Hawkins stated before, any factor who could have been,
But you could not conclude.
no personally.
No further questions.
Barnard, witness 60.
Yes. Thank you for your time, Doctor.
This time, Your Honor, I would like to call Remy Hollis to the stand. May I proceed?
Yes.
Please state your name for the court.
I'm Remy Hollis.
And what do you currently do?
I'm currently a data manager, and my name is Cynthia, and I'm the Dr. Hawkins.
Were you aware that it was going to be an animal accident on the day of the person?
I was not.
How did you find out about there being an animal accident?
One of my band members, the drummer, he was constantly sneezing, and that had only ever happened around a cat at a cat cafe before.
And do you recall seeing a cat this week?
Actually, later on, after the incident, while I was on the phone with 911, I did see a cat.
Your Honor, permission to approach the witness with Exhibit 1, which has already been entered into evidence.
Permission granted.
May I approach the witness with a copy of Exhibit 1?
You may.
And may I approach the counsel with any copies you'd like to see? Now, on the day of the rehearsal, when you were calling 911, where were you standing?
I was in the audience.
And could you please point out to the jury where your cell was kept?
It was after the audience.
Now, I want to move backwards a little bit. Whenever you mentioned
your grandma was sneezing, did you actually find the cause of the sneezing?
Yeah, so I wanted to investigate, so I left the room and I went to the hallway and there was a door open halfway, so I went in there and I saw an animal that I later found out was a chicken.
And what did you do after seeing the chicken?
I wanted to find someone to remove this animal away from the drummer, but I saw Danny Kosak and Alex Gray speaking.
And do you recall this conversation?
I do actually. Danny Kosak was saying something along the lines of he wasn't 100% sure about Alex's performance.
And how did Alex Gray respond to this?
Alex Gray was very nonchalant. She was just like, don't worry about it. You're being too uptight. Just think about your ratings.
I'm sorry, what did Alex Gray say?
Think about ratings.
Thank you.
Cross-examination.
Hi. The first time you saw Elias, you said he was agitated. Is that correct?
I wasn't sure if he was agitated or not because I'm not an expert, but he was jumping at me.
And after you left the room, you heard Danny Kosak say that I'm not 100% confident in Elias. Is that correct? You heard Danny Kosak say, I'm not sure about this.
Yes, I definitely.
Objection, asked and answered.
When the attack took place, did you see Danny Kosak help Crystal on? No further questions.
She may. Thank you. Close arguments.
Are we taking a recess or are we just going right into closing arguments?
Could we please have a 5-10 minutes? Let's take 5, yeah. Sounds good. Ms. Kosak?
Volleyball 1.
Could I get your real name?
Oh, Danielle.
No, they beat Oregon championship today.
And then last name?
And that's the year.
And then, can I get the
No,
name?
but the Parchment won the nation. They beat them twice this year.
I'm sorry, the last one?
His last name.
No, his last name Vargas, her full name. Yeah, your name.
Miranda Roman.
Miranda.
Miranda M-E-R-N.
A-E-R-A, Roman. Thank you so much. Mr. Balazar?
Yes, sir.
Are you getting the closer?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Balthazar, what's your first name?
Balthazar?
Your first name, Balthazar?
Yes, sir.
What's your last name?
Flores?
Flores. Okay, sorry, Mr. Flores.
proceed? May it please the court, Your Honor, opposing counsel, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you cannot teach an old monkey new tricks. We've heard today that Danny Kosak was unprepared to be on Midlands After Dark with Alex Grace. We have heard today that he was irresponsible in making sure that Elias was prepared. Danny Kosak was in a state of financial distress. He would do anything to bring his sanctuary back. And so he emailed MTS over and over again, asking to be on the show. And then when he finally was, he was not ready. Today, Danny Kosak did not make sure that everyone read the guidelines that he provided. And when Danny and Elias arrived on set, Danny knew that Elias was uneasy, and he did nothing. At the pre-show rehearsal, when Elias started to screech and get fidgety, Danny Kosak did nothing. When Elias lunged towards Chris Villafana and started ripping him apart, Danny Kosak did nothing. Your Honor, we had a burden of proof today to show that Danny Kosak, through preponderance of the evidence, meaning that it was more likely than not, was negligent in today's case. Both the plaintiff and the defense agreed that there was a duty owed by the defense to the plaintiff and that there was harm suffered. Today, through evidence, we are showing you that there was a breach in that duty by the defendant, and that breach was the direct and proximate cause of the death of Chris Villafana. We have showed you through evidence today, we called 3 witnesses to the stand. First, you heard from Jameson Clark. Jameson Clark informed you that she held a meeting, and she made sure that everyone was prepared to have Elias on the show. Then you heard from Dr. Hawkins, who went through the guidelines for what a performance chimpanzee should be. He talked to you about the age of a chimpanzee. The past 9 out of 10 chimpanzee attacks were all by chimpanzees older than age 5, and Elias was 10. He talked about the gender of a chimpanzee and what it should be to be a performance chimpanzee. The last 9 out of 10 chimpanzee attacks were done by a male chimpanzee. Elias was a male chimpanzee. Last, you heard from Miss Alex Grace herself, who took all of the necessary precautions and went above and beyond using Danny Kosak's guidelines. She reached out to 5 experts in the field, and she found an article that was widely used by TV producers to show how prepared she was. Now, the defense wants you to believe that MTS was not prepared to have Elias on the show. But you heard today from Remy Hollis that she overheard Danny Kosak saying that she is just not 100% confident in Elias. And that he's just nervous. She's nervous about having Elias on set. Earlier today, you heard from my co-counsel, Tyler Watson, and he explained this duty, or this negligence to you. And we, through this evidence, are hoping that you will find that the defendant is liable in this case, because you cannot teach an old monkey new tricks.
Go ahead. Yes.
Today we are here because rules were broken. Regulations weren't followed. Due to those sustainabilities and duties of Midland After Dark, we have 2 deaths on that day. We have Chris and our beloved chimpanzee Elias, which was a great friend to the irresponsibility of Alex, Kosak lost what was for him the most valuable thing on this planet, a friend and a trained chimpanzee. Earlier, Remy said that she saw a cat on set. What animal isn't going to be triggered with another animal? Dogs do bark at cats for a reason. Possibly that could be what triggered Elias to continue with the attack on Chris. Earlier, one of the opposing counsel brought up McCoy's attention about Exhibit 23. Exhibit 23 wasn't part of evidence. It was not sustained in evidence. So that is not relevant to this. With that being said, Kosak himself knows Elias the most. He knows what every screech, every scream, every jump means. As Hawkins himself, he claims to be an expert. He didn't do no hands-on training with any type of chimpanzee or any animal in that matter. Therefore, the sustainability or credibility of that sense doesn't do any relevance in this case. Elias was generalized by Hawkins. Elias has a mind like a human being. We all have different characteristics. Just because Elias was 10 years old doesn't mean you can't teach an old monkey tricks. That's generalizing Elias. Now, following the event, how can Alex say that Kosak didn't do anything when Alex was hiding behind the desk? How can you see if your eyes were closed or covered? Just looking at all the evidence and relevance on the case, it just doesn't happen. So, with this moment being said, I'd like the opposing counsel to make Midland After Dark liable for their action. Thank you.
May I proceed, Your Honor?
You bet.
The defense just talked to you about how Remy Hollis saw a cat on set. Remy Hollis didn't go and tell anyone that there was a cat on set. She could have easily gone up to somebody, anyone in the studio, and had said, hey, what's this cat doing on set? But she did not. The defense also brings up that Miss Alex Grace hid under her desk. Alex Grace is not a chimpanzee trainer. Alex Grace has no training in terms of how to stop a chimpanzee from attacking another man. So, of course she's gonna hide under her desk. There's nothing she can do. You heard the defense discredit Dr. Willoughby Hawkins, saying that Dr. Hawkins generalized all chimpanzees. But Dr. Hawkins gave you facts and statistics. 9 out of 10 chimpanzees that do these attacks are male. 9 out of 10 chimpanzees, as was stated, are over the age of 5. He's not generalizing Elias. He's just using statistics to share what he believes was the cause of this attack. Now, through this evidence, and the fact that both sides lost something near and dear to them, Danny Kosak didn't do everything in her power. She saw that the food was there, and you heard her today. She told MTS about it, and MTS removed that food. Our job was done. We followed the safety guidelines provided to us. The defense said that Danny Kosak's safety guidelines were not relevant because they were not entered into evidence today. Regardless of whether or not they were entered into evidence, they were still guidelines in addition to the 5 experts and articles that Alex Grace referenced in order to make sure that Midlands Television Studios was prepared to have Elias on set. With all these facts and evidence that has been provided to you, members of the jury, we, the plaintiff, are confident that you will find that Danny Kosak was negligent and find him liable. Because you cannot teach an old monkey new tricks.
Okay, that's over. If you guys want to step out for like 5 minutes, while we just finish out the balance. Yeah, pretty close. So, I'm trying to get my thoughts from there. The last time I did, I finally wrote to it. Somebody may take it that hard to get it. The last case I did was so close. It might come to a different conclusion tomorrow. That's actually, yeah. So all these are real close. Yeah. Yeah.
The kids were raised so parents, when you're an old man, when you're 77 years old, you gotta look at things closely. The last case I had, some of the witnesses wouldn't look ever at the judge and the jury. In this case, and both of them did a pretty, they made some effort, and it varies from case to case. This one was certainly superior to the last one.
No, I did not, because I was falling over in the hallway.
Yes.
Okay, they're ready. My feet are dead.
Can I change it to my dance now?
Do it. I can't wait to go dive into that pool. I'm telling you what. What's your problem?
Great round, guys. I'm sure you guys are excited to go back to the hotel and be done with this day. So my comments will be very short. My name is Julian Bailey. I am a 3L here at UMKC Law. I did UMKC non-trial and a little bit of trial at ACA Law School. I thought both teams were very, very good. My only advice is going to be stuff that you probably have already heard, but it's just like little stuff. I would say mostly it's just remember to like be sure about your objections and then your cross follow-ups. Specifically, I think it was Joseph. One of the things I overruled your objection about, I think it was about either the host of the show not having knowledge that she was hiding under the table. I overruled your objection thinking that you would come back on cross and really cross run on it. Like say you were never there. So it's just little things like that. There was something on both teams, so now I gotta say it. Matthew, I thought your cross could have been better if you, because your whole cross was about, we're paying this guy way too much money for what he's actually done. I think it would have been better if you would have said that after you talked about how much you didn't do. You just said you didn't do all this stuff and then talked about that you getting paid $450 an hour. I thought it would have been more effective on that. Overall, I really liked your guys' cross. I really liked your crosses. They were very simple. Really everything you did was simple, comfortable. You really kind of, made this more personable, less robotic. So I thought that was very nice. Overall, very good on both sides. I don't have a lot of comments.
I'm Doug Beachy. I've had a general practice of law in Southeast Kansas for too long, 38 years. I served as city attorney for my community for 35 years. I filled in as acting county attorney, municipal court judge pro temp for nearby communities. So I've seen quite a few trials over the years and participated in quite a few trials. In my earlier life, I did a lot of felony criminal defense work because in Southeast Kansas, when I got out of law school, there was no public defender. You were just, you had no choice. The district judge would appoint you to represent indigent felony defendants. So I got a lot of experience back then at a relatively young age. I thought the witnesses in general were very, very good. All of you took the time to look at the judge, look at the jury, and in my view at least, that certainly greatly enhances all of your credibility. You were well prepared and it showed. The attorney performances were also, I thought, at a high level as well. I in particular noticed several of you were short and to the point in your cross-examinations, and you were particularly excellent in terms of cross-examining a very strong expert witness. You made your points and you sat down and you shut up. And so many times, even experienced attorneys tend to wallow on cross-examination, kind of like they're reaching for something or trying to make a point when they should just make the points they know they can make and sit down. And so while you may have set kind of the gold standard in that respect, the rest of you also had some very short to the point cross-examinations. Perhaps the thing I enjoyed the most was the cross-examination by the strong plaintiff's attorney against a strong defendant witness. That was quite entertaining. Sometimes in a case like this, you can see if nobody loses, both sides just did a really good job. You did a good job of cross-examination, and you did a good job of hanging with her. So you should both be pleased with that, at least in my view. That's basically my comment.
One more thing, I just wanted to say that this goes for both council tables. Just remember that we can see you guys. So like, if someone on your team messes up and you want to like whisper to them, like it's super obvious. And like most of the time, we don't really notice when you guys mess up because we're brand new to the case. We don't know any of the facts, so we don't hear some of those missed objections. But if I hear you mention it, then I know that they've messed up and it kind of results on that. So just keep it together, act like it didn't happen and something happened. Also, Brian Fellows, did you make that up or is he in the thing?
No, that was actually a show that.
Yeah, that's hilarious. Okay, I thought you made that up.
No.
That's it for me.
In any trial, this stuff happens, and so you just got to kind of let it like water off the back of the duck. If something doesn't go quite right or an objection doesn't go the way you want, just move on. So, good job to everybody. Yeah, thank you. You did a good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Another good job. This time is the way. Very nice job.
Very hungry.
Good job. Good job. You look like an expert. I like to run that. Thank you. Thank you. Good job.
Yeah, no.
Thank you.
Next time I'm adding personality to this.
Next time I'm at it.
Next time I'm doing this drunk.
Oh yeah. No, I saw you say that.
Oh, Tyler.
You know, you analyze my stuff.
Yes, I think
Just put it in the Bible.
Put it in the Bible.
I must procure the oath. Flips table.